let's say someone that's listening to this podcast right now, I'm thinking about the state of functional medicine here in the UK, right? People are becoming kind of more aware of it. So let's take an example. Someone's listening to this. Maybe they've got really significant IBS. Maybe they've got menopause. Maybe they're dealing with some kind of autoimmune condition, some kind of inflammatory condition. I think people may well get to a point now where they think, okay, I'm going to see a functional practitioner. I now accept the idea that this might be correlated to my diet, and there might be some interventions that I can make that are non-pharmaceutical. Let's say we've got someone listening who's like that. 50% of the work is going to be changing your diet. Maybe that's removing some foods. Maybe that's introducing some foods. 25% of the work is going to be adding things in, supplementation, nutraceuticals. Would you say a remaining 25% should be spiritual, let's call it, or psychological, or reflection? You know, when you sort of weigh those things up, what do you think that they are? Is that a silly question?
No. I mean, I think it is sort of, that kind of question is a very reasonable question. And my answer is going to be a little different. I think, and it's kind of exciting to get to answer this question because there's so many ways in to healing. And this is what I've really discovered as someone who has practiced conventional neurology, has practiced integrative neurology, has practiced herbalism, and has been doing, work with psychedelics and separately even from that spiritual work, right? That just think about it like this. So much of how our bodies react to things has to do with our nervous system. Let's just start there, right? When you're in sympathetic overdrive, that fight or flight, you're more inflamed. That's basic. And we didn't know that for a long time. That's probably information from about, let's say, 10 years ago. So the vagus nerve, which is a very important part of the parasympathetic modulation, is actually responsible for inflammation in the body on a second-to-second basis, the same way it's responsible for respiratory rate, heart rate, right? It's also responsible for inflammation level. So if you have a very inactive parasympathetic nervous system, meaning you're very much in fight or flight all the time, not very much in rest and digest, okay? That means you're more inflamed. If you are someone with a propensity towards autoimmunity or epilepsy or migraines or chronic pain, then your state of mind, and I put this in quotes because it's really not just your state of mind, but it's your heart and soul and spirit, right? How you're feeling about the world around you is actually directly related to the level of inflammation, the amount of pain you're in, the amount of autoimmunity that you're exhibiting in your body, the number of seizures you have. All of this has to do with how you are feeling in the world, right? And, I would love to bring in some of the conversation about psychedelics and the science of psychedelics into this, because what we know is that with psychedelics, the studies that have been done, which now there are centers all around the world in every major academic center. So this isn't like at all this sort of stigmatized underground stuff it used to be. I mean, at in the UK, in the US, like at Harvard, at Stanford, everywhere, they're doing amazing work. What they're finding is one dose of, let's say, psilocybe mushrooms, right? These magic mushrooms, as they're called, can reverse major physical and mental health conditions. Just one dose with support. Okay, this isn't like go out in your backyard kind of thing. Although, I can't say that wouldn't help, but the studies that have been done are with therapeutic support before, during, and after. Okay. But one dose can reverse things like addiction, PTSD, major depression, intractable to other medications. We're now looking and seeing that There's probably benefit for autoimmunity, for chronic pain. They've been looking at trigeminal neuralgia, which is very difficult to treat, and it actually leads some people to suicide. The pain is so terrible. It's looking like microdosing with psychedelics may treat trigeminal neuralgia, may treat migraines, may treat cluster headaches. These are very difficult to treat conditions. We're looking at MS. We're looking at Parkinson's. We're looking at Alzheimer's as possibly responding to microdoses of psychedelics. And in my book, I go into a lot about the physiology and why that's true, right? Because it's not just something that works in your brain. It's something that's working throughout the body and actually strengthening mitochondria. And for me, everything that's going on physically and mentally in the body, has mitochondrial basis, right? I mean, there's physical and mental and emotional and spiritual and ecological aspects, but the mitochondria are the underlying modulators. And, one of the things that I think is really fascinating is, and probably most people, well, I don't know if most people have heard of the cell danger response, but mitochondria are actually not just this little organelle that we see in, our high school textbooks, and it all looks the same. When you have mitochondria in a cell that feels safe, okay, and feels nourished and is in a good environment, that mitochondria looks like branched spaghetti. And they basically are communicating. They're all branched and touching one another, communicating, exchanging nutrients, exchanging information, releasing waste, and so on. When mitochondria are in a cell that is, under threat, right? We call this the cell danger response. So in a cell that for some reason, because of toxins, infection, emotional trauma, etc., that cell is in a danger mode, those mitochondria ball up like meatballs. And they're completely different in their structure. They don't communicate with one another. They're not touching. They're not exchanging nutrients. They're not exchanging information, and they're not releasing waste well. So those mitochondria are not functioning well at all when they're in this danger mode. And so all of this to say that sometimes there's a lot of ways in, okay? If a person feels like they have a huge emotional or mental opening, right? And they learn how to be in that parasympathetic mode, their cells start to shift out of danger mode. Their mitochondria go from meatballs to spaghetti, right? And your whole physical health and mental health can completely change. I'll tell you a little story, a personal story. When I was writing my book, The Master Plan Experience, it was a very challenging, very difficult kind of process for me based on lots of things that were going on. And I had a shoulder injury and I was in a lot of pain and I couldn't lift weights. I like to do, Olympic weightlifting, and I couldn't do it. And so I decided I would go get a massage, just sort of out of desperation. I'd been going to an osteopath. I'd done all these things. I said, okay, I'm going to just get a massage and see if it helps. I got this massage. It was 2 hours long. I did not know it was going to be 2 hours long. Who has time, right, for a 2-hour-long massage? I got this massage, and I thought to myself when I finished, I thought, I don't think I've ever been this calm in my entire life. Like, I think I've never had really good parasympathetic tone. And I actually did have a lot of capital T trauma in my childhood. So, who knows how that was playing in my whole entire life. But I decided I would go back for another massage because I thought, oh my God, and my family's like, wow, you're so calm. You're so nice. Like, you're so happy. Like, and it's not that I wasn't happy before, or I didn't feel calm before, but I started getting massages every week for a period of time. Within 2 weeks, the pain was gone. My shoulder pain that I'd had for months was gone. And I've continued, luckily, I'm able to do this for months of time. I continued to get regular massages because I wanted to see what would happen in my nervous system and what would happen in my body and how it would affect my life, really kind of as an experiment. I know so much about so many different ways of treating people. And here I went and got this, it's like massages, right? That was the way in for me to heal from this injury, this chronic pain, and to actually feel so much better. I hadn't even realized, right, that I was so sympathetically activated